Hello and welcome. After spending hundreds of hours over the past 6 months trying to bring this tutorial to YouTube, I've finally succeeded in creating something that is teachable. We're going to tackle the basics so we can create amazing effects like the ones you see now. Today, I want to take this regular Metahuman, a single particle, and create this fully animated, character-driven effect. I begin by creating a project. I enable starter content and ray tracing and give it a name. Next, I'm going to go to Quixel Bridge and import a Metahuman. You can use whatever character you want. I'm going to enable all the missing settings and restart the project. With the project open again, I'm going to create a folder, name it FX. And now I'm going to create a Niagara System. I want to choose a template here, and I'm going to choose single looping particle. Currently, this runs on CPU. We will be running on GPU shortly. I'm going to give this a name, Face FX. And here we have our Niagara System. I want to see my particle a little better, so I go to Preview Scene. If you can't find it, go to Window. Go to Environment, uncheck Show Environment, and here set the color to a dark color. And as you can see, we now have a black background. Next, I'm going to select our emitter and go to the Details panel. I'm going to toggle on local space, but I would suggest you experiment with this. Next, for sim target, I'm going to choose GPU compute. And for fixed bounds, I'm going to set maybe minus 500, minus 500, minus 500, 500, and 500. Now, this is very important. We need require persistent IDs to give each of our particles a unique ID. With that done, let's move forward. I'm going to compile and save. Next, I'm going to select our system node. And for loop behavior, I want to set to once. Next, I'm going to go to particle state. And I'm going to uncheck all the checkboxes here. This will make our particles live forever. I'm going to create a basic level. FX scene. And open it up. I'm going to drag my Niagara System into the level. And zoom in so I can see my single particle. Back in the Niagara System, we can choose Debug Heads-Up Display. I'm going to check Debug Overview Enabled and set to verbose for all of these. Debugging is not essential, but it does help you. As we can see, it tells us how many emitters, particles, etc. we have. We currently have one particle. If I was to adjust our spawn rate or spawn burst instantaneous to 2, it now displays we have 2 particles. Next, I need to create a user parameter for our skeletal mesh. So I'm going to search for skeletal mesh, and I will name this face and then expand. I need to choose my Metahuman's skeletal mesh. And so here it is, Ada face mesh. And I'm going to copy and put this into the preview mesh as well. Now I need to open up my skeletal mesh to make some changes to it. First thing I want to do is set up allow CPU access. And then I'm going to search for region. And here we're going to set up regional sampling. I'm going to add an element. And I'm going to give it a name. We'll call this face only. For load index, I'm going to choose 0. And you could choose support uniformly distributed sampling here. I'm not going to do that for this tutorial. Okay, so I only want my particles to be sampled in a specific region. I do this by adding a material filter, and I want it only on my head shader. And that's it. Now we save. Back in our system, I need to make some small changes. The first is we need to know the vertex count of our skeletal mesh. So I'm going to click here on emitter spawn, and I want to add a Scratchpad module. So I choose new Scratchpad module. Inside the module, I'm going to add here skeletal mesh. I'm going to drag off the skeletal mesh and find get vertex count. And then I'm going to take the output of this to map set and give it a name. Main vertex count. I then need to change this namespace to emitter. And that's it. I'm going to compile, save, and apply. Next, I'm going to give my Scratch module a name. Get vertex count. And over here under skeletal mesh, I'm going to choose our skeletal mesh we set up. So I'll go to link inputs, user, and face. That's it. Next, I need to spawn the correct amount of particles for our vertices. So I go to spawn burst instantaneous, and under spawn count, we can now choose link, emitter, and as we can see, our main vertex count is here, and I'm going to choose this one here. That's it. We are now spawning the same amount of particles that we have vertices. Next, I need to set up the regional sampling. I'm going to come to my skeletal mesh, go to sampling regions, add an element, and choose face only that we set up earlier. And that's it. Compile and save again. As you can see, we now have 34,640 particles. Next, we go to particle update. And we need to search for skeletal mesh location. This will place our particles in the same place as our skeletal mesh vertices. In the details panel, we need to link to our user skeletal mesh. So go to link inputs, user face. And now, as you can see, we have something. Under sampling, it's currently set to bones. I want to set to surface vertices. And then I'm going to go to initialize particle, and I want to set my sprite size to something smaller. Maybe 0.01. No, 0.1. And this is what we have so far. As you can see, what we have now is particles randomly scattered around the surface of our Metahuman in the regions that we chose. In this case, the head shader. What I want to do is change the vertex sampling mode from random to direct sampling regions. It's important that you choose sampling regions here. Now we need to assign a Vertex ID. We can do this by choosing our unique particle ID. So I'm going to search for unique. There it is. Return particle ID attributes. And now here we can choose the unique ID or the unique ID index. I think in this instance, I'm going to choose ID index, and that gives us this particles ID as our source. Now, when we go back to the viewport, let's go into our scene. Our particles are now uniformly distributed exactly where the vertices are. Brilliant. Let's continue. I'm going to go to initialize particle, and we can set the color mode here if we like of our sprites. Maybe blue. Now if we take a look, all our sprites are now blue. I do want to go further than this though, so let's proceed. I'm going to go to render and add a mesh renderer, and I'm going to turn off the sprite renderer. Select mesh renderer, go over to meshes, and I want to add a sphere here. I will choose this shape sphere. I'm going to enable material overrides. And for the purposes of the tutorial, I'm going to choose the gold material from the starter pack. In initialize particle, go to the details panel. Mesh scale mode should be set to uniform. Mesh uniform scale. I'm going to set to 0.001. maybe 0.05. That's a little too large. So I will set to 0.003. This may be different depending on which mesh you decided to use. Let's go to lit mode now, and I'm going to add a light. I will add a directional light and set it to movable. And now if we move the light, this is what we have. Okay, so I'm going to open up the debugger by pressing the debug button, and I want to turn off debugging now. So disable the heads up display, and as we can see, the heads up display is now gone. So what I want to do now is attach this to the Metahuman itself for animation. So I'm going to delete the Niagara System for now and find my Metahuman's head. In this case, it's in Metahuman's Ada and face. And here's my skeletal mesh. I'm going to drag it into the scene and zero out its location. Next, I'm going to go to my effects folder and drag my Niagara System back in. And also zero out the location. I'm going to then drag this Niagara System on top of my face mesh and choose none. That's it. It's now a child of our face mesh. With the Niagara System selected, I choose Cast Shadow. And then select my face mesh again and choose Animation Asset. And we'll choose just the Archit mapping animation for now, just to try this out. And then simulate. Great. As you can see, the particles are moving with the character animation. If we take a closer look at the neck, as we can see, the particles are not on the surface of the neck. This is because the Metahuman uses the neck hide parameter inside its material. But the rest of the particles, as you can see, are uniformly positioned across the Metahuman. Okay, so I just want to play with the lighting in the scene. And I'm doing this by adjusting the directional light. I would normally have more than one light, but I just want to see if I can do it with one light today, just to save resources while I'm recording. What I want to do now is select my face mesh and search for visible, and I'm going to uncheck visible. And then on visibility, I can never say this, visibility based anim tick option, choose always tick, pose and refresh bones. And now what that's done is hidden our Metahuman. And we're left with just our Niagara System fully animated. If I adjust the light, I can show this a little better. Moving forward, I want to expand upon what I've taught you today and create some wild and wacky particle effects as well as some practical ones. Here are a few that I created for the purpose of the tutorial. More tutorials are on the way, but for now, could you please hit like and subscribe? I will see you in the next one.